And a good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Issues and Attitudes. My name is Jeff Owens, General Manager, WEIU. My co-host, Tristan Thomas.
Hello, hello.
And our guest today is also from WEIU, Producer-Director Lacey Spence.
Good afternoon.
So, appreciate you coming in today. And, Lacey, we haven't done this in a while. We haven't debuted a brand new program on WEIU in a few years, and you are lucky enough to get to tell us a little bit what people can expect tonight or this week, as this will air a couple of times this week on WEIU.
Yeah, very blessed to get to host Take a Hike, the mini-series. And so we kind of came up with this idea mid-pandemic when there wasn't a lot you could do. At least you could go outside. And so we decided to visit a couple of area parks, state parks, natural areas, and really show people what they can do to enjoy the great outdoors.
That's awesome. So, I mean, when you was it during the pandemic when the inspiration hit, or did you was this mulling around in your head before? Or?
I would love to say it was mulling around before, but it's not. I'm not the biggest outdoor gal, so this really pushed me outside my comfort zone. And it's not that I hate being outdoors. I'm just not a huge fan of bugs and things of that nature, creepy crawlies, you know. But it was so nice to get out and see what we had in our own backyard, and I really learned something new in every episode.
So there were 6 different shows. The first show debuts tonight, so why don't we talk about tonight, where locally it's Lake Charleston.
Yes, we got to go out to Lake Charleston, so right in the backyard of WEIU, and we spoke with Brian Jones and Diane Ratliff from the Parks and Recreation Department, and they were able to show us really just a variety of what's going on out there, what there is for people. So I know the trail work is huge, especially if you live in the Charleston area. You know, in the last couple of years, it's been big for the biking community, also the hiking community. They just finished the final stretch of getting to go all the way around the lake. They've got a new pavilion. There's just a lot for people to check out there.
What are the kind of general roadmaps for each episode? Or is it a similar things you go into in each episode, or are they kind of unique in certain ways?
Yeah, so this is a format that we've not really got to do before. So there is an interview portion at the beginning, which basically just a big Q&A for me. In the middle, we have a take a hike tip, so just some outdoor tips if you're getting outside. That was actually written by our student intern, Jackson Bayer. He did a great job with that. And then we transition into what I call a demo portion. So basically, I asked our executive production assistant, I don't even know what to call Ramin. He was a jack of all trades in this, such a pivotal part to it. But I was basically like, is there a way that we can do a walk and talk for 10 to 15 minutes and just really get to show people in real time what they can see when they're out here? And he was down, Ramin Carbacion, he was so great, just followed us around and really brought the whole thing to life. So that's kind of the format of each episode.
Okay. And I guess we'll go through some of the episodes, but I guess what made you select some of them? What was your selection process? Because there's lots of places to go here in Central Illinois, and you had to hone it down to 6 this first season.
Yeah, so basically I wanted to try and pick locations that were within driving distance. So I think the farthest one away is maybe an hour 15, and that's not to say we won't go a little bit further in future seasons, but I didn't want to just exhaust everything that's in Coles County, so it's very just us centered. So I mean, we went over by Marshall, we went up by Monticello, over by Danville, and so my hope in the future is to again be able to kind of pick a couple that are close to home, because we didn't choose everything in Coles County, but to also be able to go a little bit further.
Okay, interesting. We're talking to Lacey Spence today, and the new show Take a Hike debuts tonight. This is a Monday if you're watching this at 8 o'clock on WEIU-TV. It'll also air on your 13 and WEIU later this week as well. Week 2 then, our episode 2 is Lake Shelbyville.
Yes, Lake Shelbyville was an absolute blast. So I got to talk with Ashley Flory of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers.
A good friend of WEIU.
Yes, she was fabulous. And so she actually suggested that we don't tape the interview at Lake Shelbyville. And I was like a little bit, well, okay, so where shall we tape? And she actually had us set up at what's called Denham's Pit. And it's part of the Kaskaskia River Water Trail. So in our demo portion of the episode, we actually hopped in a kayak, and I had never been kayaking, and so she gave me some pointers. She is still by far way better at it than I am. I left that day soaked from the waist down, but we got to check that spot out, and it's a spot that's part of this huge conglomerate that is the Lake Shelbyville project, but not a lot of people know about. And so it's actually closer to Allenville, but again, it's just another thing we get to show off because a lot of people just think, oh, Lake Shelbyville is just the big lake. It's just fishing out there. It's just camping, or the General Lacey Trail, which all those things are there and possible and awesome. But this Denham's Pit, a hidden gem that people maybe don't realize is there.
Neat.
What was it like shooting video with the kayaking? Was the camera like in there with you?
Yeah.
Nerve-wracking.
That's what the general manager doesn't want to know. But
Jeff,
go ahead. Yeah, it's a
Jeff,
great
close
question.
your ears.
I want to
It was a little nerve-wracking because actually this was a first for Ramin and I. We had gotten new wireless microphones that we had never used before. So of everything that we took in the water, we decided to take the brand new microphones instead of our camera. But we were able to get that all worked out. So I had Ramin shooting from the shore, and I tried to tell him, go ahead and roll on me getting in and out of this kayak, because I'm sure I'll be the butt of a joke for good television.
Good.
But he was very respectful. He's like, no, I'm not going to do that to you. But so we didn't end up taking the camera in the water, but the mic survived. Everything was good. I made sure we got those off of me before I tried to get in and out of the kayak, because that wouldn't have been good.
Now, did you fall in at all or not?
Well, that's kind of the thing. I didn't necessarily fall in, but I very much committed to I'm going home soaked today. So yeah, I had the silt and mud and stuff up to my ankles too. It was a good day.
Nice.
And there's worse jobs to have.
Oh no, it was a blast. It makes for a great story.
All right, so we went to Charleston, Shelbyville, then in episode 3, which will debut April 18th, Lincoln Trail State Park.
Yeah, so that night's actually going to be really special because we've got the Explore the Outdoors campaign that's going on through PBS Kids. So there's a lot of online resources and ways to get kids involved in nature. And so that evening at 7 o'clock, we're actually airing Eleanor Wonders Why a Wonderful Journey. So that'll be a good, night to keep the kids in, have them watch that. And then right after that, we go to Lincoln Trail State Park. So Tom Hintz, he is a wealth of knowledge. Oh my gosh, he was so intelligent just about everything. So we interviewed on the dock, and then he took us for a tour of the Airstrip Trail. And we were on RTV. Most people don't get to do that. Ramin is hanging on in the back with the camera. But he was able to just point out so many different plants and just rattle off like, oh, this is such and such and such, and it's got, this history with it, and just so knowledgeable. He was saying that after he retires from this job, he would like to work for the National Park Service as a tour guide, and I'm like, you would be perfect for that.
And who uses that airstrip? Is that just people with tiny planes, or how does that work?
No, so that's actually part of the story of the Airstrip Trail. So back in the day, it used to be an airstrip for, I say back in the day, I was
You're
there.
so old.
So I've heard from Mr. Hintz that it used to be a landing strip that if the governor wanted to come in for something, he could land there and then travel to wherever he needed to. So now that area has actually grown up. There's trees all around. You would never expect that planes used to land there. And it's used for all sorts of hiking. And I can't remember if they say you can bike, but I know they definitely do running and training on it.
This is a dumb question, but there's so many Lincolns and Lincoln Trails in this. Where is Lincoln Trail State Park at?
It is south of Marshall.
South of Marshall.
Yes.
I had to ask. I'm sorry.
Well, and it's actually, he was telling me that it used to be part of a Boy Scout pilgrimage to follow this Lincoln Trail, it was Lincoln's Trail up to Springfield.
Okay.
So there's history there.
I feel like there's Lincoln Trails all over.
Yeah, because
Illinois.
there's Lincoln Trail College over there. And there's, so I wanted to make sure that this is the one that's south of Marshall. So there we
In
go.
Muhammad, that was my, I think middle school, is Lincoln Trail. So
Okay. Yeah.
there's some,
It's a big state for Lincoln.
Yeah.
I think it's,
all kinds of trails
There
all
you
over
go.
the state.
The next one is in Mattoon. It's the Douglas Hart Nature Center, which is one of the neatest places in the area. So talk about what we can expect there on episode 4.
Yeah, so I got to talk to Abby DeBurr, and she was also super passionate about the work that she does there. She's like, I started working there right after college, and they just couldn't get rid of me. And so she was so passionate about all of the summer programs that they offer for kids. They also have several trails there. They have restored prairie, and that was actually one of the biggest things that I learned is that the park was actually started by Helen Douglas Hart, and she was kind of a woman before her time, so she's out there buying up, acres of farm ground, tilling it all up, and planting a bunch of trees. And she was actually Coles County's first woman pilot, so that was also very cool. But none of that was there, I guess. So if you look at old aerial photographs, it was just an empty field. So to see, all of the work that they put into conservation and things like that, they've done such a beautiful job. And then we also talk about, there's 2 other properties that's under that Douglas Hart umbrella. So there's the Friendship Garden in Mattoon, which I think is at 17th and Lafayette, 19th, somewhere around
Near the
Lafayette.
police station and old
Thank
chamber
you.
building.
Charleston, Oakland gal over here,
Yeah.
my bad. I shouldn't give directions. And then there's also the Whiteside Garden, which they recently acquired, that is on the opposite side of Charleston to the east.
There you go.
And what kinds of trails are there? Is there just like running trails, biking trails?
So they're mostly walking trails, but they're also able to take like a stroller on it and things like that. And I should also kind of give the disclaimer that even though the show is called Take a Hike, it's not meant to be just hiking. We talk about birding, geocaching, fishing, kayaking. I mean, pretty much
Anything outdoors, right?
Anything outdoors. We're more playing on the words of like, take a hike, get out of here,
It's a great name,
make the
yeah.
trip.
Yeah.
So it's not just hiking, if that's what anybody at home is thinking, because I'm very much a novice when it comes to hiking and things of that nature. So there's a little something for everybody.
There you go. And this is a six-part series this first year. Episode 5, which will debut in May, which is May's just right around the corner.
Gosh.
The Forest Glen Preserve. Talk about that.
Yes, so this was over by Danville, and there were 2 really cool things that stuck out to me. So when I was talking with Susan Biggs-Warner about what our kind of demo portion should be, there was a tie between 2 things. One was their observation tower. So they have a 70-foot observation tower, which is just the neatest thing. It gives you such a great bird's eye view of the Vermilion River. And then what we ended up covering in depth was outdoor school. And so since its inception back in the 70s or 80s, they've had over 60,000 kids, they've figured, go through this program. And basically what it is the 4th and 5th graders from the local schools will go in and basically get, some of them, their first taste of the outdoors. They get hands-on. They got a little booklet that goes along with it, but then they're like going out looking for mushrooms, looking for whatever in the woods, and really just getting outdoors, which I think a lot of us, if we're from the rural area, we take that for granted, that like, oh yeah, you got to go play in the creek until, mom whistled for me or whatever. And so this is honestly, for a lot of the kids that live in the city, their first chance to get outside and see what's out there.
Have you been
Is
there? Is that closer to your area?
Yeah, I was gonna say, is that an area where there's a lot of like morel mushrooms at certain times, and can people go out and hunt for those? Because I know that's a huge thing in that time.
So I believe there is mushroom hunting, and I believe Susan Biggs-Warner was talking that they also have like a tour that they would take people on to identify the mushrooms. As far as like the eating kind, I can't say I've got super education on it.
So you've never been mushroom hunting?
Well, I've been mushroom hunting. I just mean up at Forest Glen.
Okay.
And so one mushroom, though, that she did keep talking about during the episode is called chicken of the woods.
Oh, yeah.
And it apparently is edible. And, like, she was showing it to one of the kids, and she said it was a little past its prime, so it looked a little brown, a little questionable. But it really did look like a chicken breast. Like,
Yeah.
interesting.
If you watch any of the survival shows, they're always they love it when they find that. So there you go. And last but certainly not least, episode 6 for the new Take a Hike series this year, Allerton Park and Retreat Center.
Yes, I am so excited to be able to go back to Allerton, because when you're taping and stuff, you don't necessarily get the chance to stop and smell the roses or really, enjoy or take in what you're doing. And there was so much at Allerton that we didn't even get to see. But they just have a mix of everything. They've got hiking trails. They've got 14 botanical gardens. They've got so many sculptures with history behind them. And then they've got this giant mansion. People can actually rent out and stay the night in it. And it was just really cool to get taken around the grounds. And it was like around every twist and turn, there was something different there at
And that's
Allerton.
Monticello, correct?
Yes, Piatt County.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was your favorite statue out there? Because I know there's so many cool like sculptures and stuff. It's like how is this here?
Oh, definitely. My favorite was definitely the cobalt blue food dogs in the food dog garden. There's 22 of them, and so we had actually been weaving around in the woods, and I hadn't really seen them yet. And we came around the corner, and all of a sudden it just opened up to these 22 big blue, very ornate-looking statues. And then also at the end there is a tower there. It's not as tall as the 70-foot one, but you can go up and you can get a great view of the food dogs from the top down. From some of the other, I guess, foliage, whatever. But basically the gentleman who started it, he was a self-proclaimed failed artist. So when he didn't
So am I.
he didn't like his paintings. He burnt all his paintings. But once he had this property, the land basically became his canvas, and so you can just see that walking through. Like, there's so much symmetry or so much color or difference between shapes and textures and kinds of things that you'll see there. All of these sculptures that he collected, and so it really is just neat to see that the land then became his canvas.
So that wraps up the season 1. Will there be, are the plans to go forward with season 2?
I mean, I'm game if you're game.
Well, I always say, a lot of this does depend on sponsors, and we had 2 great sponsors this year. We'll mention them. Rural King and First Mid-Atlantic Bank and Trust are the 2 sponsors who stepped up to help present the show. So we want to thank them and their patronage for WEIU. So I guess if they renew, and we'll move forward, we'll talk about that later on. But we do want to thank them a little bit. I guess one of the things that now that we've went through the season, I like to pick your brain a little bit. What did you learn? I mean, what did Lacey Spence learn on this first 6-episode series?
I would say not to assume what's in your own backyard, because, like I said, I feel like I learned something new every episode, especially when I was with Tom Hintz going through that trail. We were just driving along, and he grabbed some of this plant, and he goes, "This is gumbo filet," and the Native Americans used to teach the settlers how to cook with this, and he was like, "Here, smell it," and like, it smells really good, and I don't know, just things like that. Every episode, it was kind of unexpected, I guess.
I've got one more Allerton question.
Oh, yeah.
Did you get to go into the mansion?
I did not go into the mansion, which again is one of those, like, strapped for time. I wish we could have seen absolutely everything, and I think that's actually worth
Part 2 down the road.
Well, and it's worth going into a little bit, because this show, there are literally 3 people on the credits: myself, Ramin Carbacion, and then Jackson Bayer, and that's it. So you think of when you watch a movie and you see the credits roll for 10 or 15 minutes, and you see everyone who has a hand in it. That day when we went out, it was myself and Ramin, and it was like divide and conquer. You take this side, I'll take this side, and we still didn't even get half the park. But that encourages people that if they didn't get to see absolutely everything that my interviews talked about, that encourages them to go see and check it out for themselves.
And to tell us that we want to do season 2. I assume you've been in there. You've got that look.
Yeah, no, because my brother and my brother lives in Monticello, and we'll go out there and walk around or bike on the trails and stuff. And I've been in I'm trying to think. I think it was like a couple like Christmases ago. I was there for they had some kind of like sale day where people came in and sold like quilts and stuff. And
they're like Christmas market.
Yeah.
Because they mentioned that in the episode. That's like the only glimpse I got inside. I had snagged a few pictures from their Facebook, and like just to see how grand the like entrance staircase is, or how they have it decked out for Christmas. And I'm already a Christmas fiend anyway, so it's like my Hallmark dream to see inside it.
There you go.
But you still didn't get to see all of the nooks and crannies.
On my list.
A lot of off limits places to the general public. So maybe that would be cool down the road.
There you go. Season 2. When you got the go ahead to go ahead and do this show, a year and a half or 2 years ago, I think, when you came to me with the idea, you got the yes. Then what is the process? I mean, to take us through a little bit of the process. I mean, is there panic? Oh my God, he said yes, and now I've got to figure out how to do the show, or did you have kind of the general idea? I'm going to do an interview, and like as you went through with what Tristan said.
There was some thinking on it, because I know that unfortunately, with just being a smaller staff, we just don't always have the resources to put as much into episodes as we would like to. And so I was trying to think of a way that we could be smart and do a little bit more than just an interview format. And so it was really exciting for me to be able to, talk things out with Ramin and be like, yeah, I'm on board, we can make this happen. We can follow you around. We can show things in real time. It'll be fun. And just trying to pick good locations, because like I said, I didn't want to exhaust absolutely everything in Coles County. And just thinking of a time of year that we could shoot it between all of our other projects. And then you don't want to necessarily shoot it March, April before it airs April, May, because nothing is green and beautiful yet. And so then the challenge became, okay, well, can we shoot it in the fall before things start turning brown? So then that was a very limited window. And then I think probably the funnest thing to overcome became right before production and taping. I came down with COVID. So I'm absolutely panicking that I'm like, I've got to get well. I've got to get, make sure, I'm good for taping and not a danger to anybody. And then that was out of the way. But it's so funny to think about the things that came up in different episodes. Like when I'm with Ashley Flory and we're on the Kaskaskia River and I kayaks, she goes, "Ooh, something stinks. Do you smell that? Something must have died on the bank." And I was like, "No, I can't smell it, so I'm afraid that's
COVID's at that.
That's one thing." And then when I was climbing the observation tower at Forest Glen Preserve, the 70-foot tower, and I'm like doing the stairs, I was telling Ramin, because he was hooked up to my microphone, I was like, "Don't listen to the audio. This is probably going to be bad." And then you listen to back and you can just hear me wheezing because I don't have my lung strength back. But I'm like, I got to get this footage, and he doesn't like heights, so here we go.
Yeah, that's awesome. You said you took an intern. That's one of the things we like to do is always have students involved in all of our productions. Did Jackson enjoy the times that he got to go with you and do some of the work?
Gosh, so unfortunately, I might have explained that wrong. Jackson didn't get to go with us on location.
Okay.
He was pivotal to our taping of Being Well and the Paul Report,
Okay.
which happened over the summer. But I had tasked him with writing these take a hike tips. But he did knock that out of the park, and it was very nice to have the additional support in that department.
And I think we will have a few more interns this summer, so it might be of help too.
Oh yeah.
When you think about, and this might help Tristan too, obviously Tristan's going into television, mostly on air, but I mean, when you think about qualities to become a TV producer and the best qualities about being a TV producer, what are some of the things that you think are your strengths and that you learn from taping these episodes?
I would say be able to go with the flow. You never know what technology is going to do. Try to stay calm. Try to have a backup plan. Be creative. Don't be afraid to go outside the box. And there's nothing wrong with paying attention to detail.
There you go. Do you prepare with the checklist? So if you're going to go an hour and a half away, you have extra batteries, extra mics, or all that. Can you take us through some of that a little bit?
Well, I tell you what, Ramin and I kind of powwow of everything that we think we might need, and then we'll bring extra. Which, I mean, you can never go wrong with having extra batteries or things like that. But I know moving forward, I definitely want to have a checklist of things that I want. And especially, trying to remember I got to tape a tease. I've got to tape this stand-up, things like that. You don't want to get back home and then you're like, oh, we're an hour and a half away and I don't have time to go back for this.
And you say, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, for each episode, how do you decide who you were going to interview? Because I imagine at these places, there's a lot of different people who could offer unique perspectives on what they think and what their experience has been with that place.
So actually, I feel like I got hooked up with a lot of the locations, like point people. And so Tom Hintz, he is the one guy he's the site superintendent. He's the one guy over Lincoln Trail. And then he's also at Walnut Point State Park. Ashley Flory was one of their public information people. But I didn't have a single interview that wasn't phenomenal, knocked it out of the park, but they kind of steered me in the direction of who I'd get to talk to.
That's cool. Have you started thinking about season 2 and where you want to go? I mean, not that you have to lock in right now, but I mean, are there certain, and in season 2, I definitely want to hit someplace?
Oh, definitely.
Give us a couple of pre-teases for next year.
We'll think about it. Well, I will say before I throw any out that if anybody at home has suggestions, feel free to email those to weiu@weiu.net, because I put that in the episode as well, because I mean, sure, I could pick locations, and I did for season 1, but I would love to hear what people want to see, where they think the best places within their backyard are. I would love to go to Walnut Point, because I'm an Oakland gal, so I want to go to Walnut Point State Park and check things out up there, probably talk to Tom again. So happy about that. There is, let's see, I really want to go to Turkey Run State Park, which is a hair farther than kind of the other places, and it is in Indiana. But I do feel like folks in this area go there a lot, and they always have great things to say. There's so much to offer. It's worth the trip, and that's the thing. I want these places to be worth taking a hike to. So those are the 2 big ones, but I'm totally open. I've got a short list, like
There you go. No, so that's good.
Effingham and like Lake Sarah, things like that.
WEIU at WEIU.net if you have ideas for Lacey for us to Take a Hike Season 2. Other questions over there for Tristan?
Yeah, for the trail tips, and maybe you could blend this with like some of just what you've learned overall. Like what are some of the biggest things you kept hearing as you kept going to these different locations, and general recommendations for not just necessarily hiking, but like being out in the wilderness?
As far as being outdoors, I would say make sure that you are aware of the weather conditions, and also if they could change on a dime. We live in Illinois, so you can see 4 seasons in one day. So just be prepared for that. And then I would say the other thing is leave no trace. So if you bring something into a park, be sure to take it out. Don't litter.
That's a good
These folks spend so much of their time in conservation work, making sure that these places are nice for generations to visit for years to come. And so you are really just stomping on them if you are not picking up after yourselves. You can hurt the wildlife, you can hurt the plant life. And so I think that was kind of a recurring theme, was just to respect the environment, and then it'll be there for you to enjoy.
That's a good one. Good question, Tristan. A couple minutes left here with Lacey. Did you see any animals? I mean, I know birds and thing, but did you raccoons or any animal spottings on this trip on Season 1?
We ate lunch, Ramin and I, at the restaurant that they have at Lincoln Trail State Park. And while we were there were these tiny little lizards or salamanders, I'm not sure. I think lizard, had a blue tail. And then we saw a deer while we were eating there as well. So that was kind of the biggest thing. And honestly, I'm thankful because I didn't want to see any snakes or spiders or anything like that.
Bears.
I'm good.
Bears, yeah. Bears.
Oh my.
Yeah, they're bigger. Yeah. Any hiccups? Was there anything that you couldn't figure out that it was on the way, or did everything kind of go smooth for the 6 episodes? Any funny stories, I guess?
A certain someone who was working with me accidentally deleted an interview. So we had to redo it. And I tell you what, it really ended up being a blessing in disguise. Everything went so much smoother the second time we did it, because we'd already done it once, and it made for a good episode, and our interview was super gracious and unbothered that it happened. But it's funny to be like, oh, take 2 is even better. Like, I love that.
Well, thank you so much tonight on WEIU-TV, 8 o'clock, Episode 1 of WEIU's brand new TV series, Take a Hike. Lake Charleston is the subject matter tonight, and it'll run for 6 straight weeks, then repeat, and obviously we'll hopefully have it back next year. Thanks to Rural King and First Mid. Thank you, Lacey.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you, Tristan. We also want to thank our man over there, Mr. Marshall Mathers, who is our student intern who helped in today, since Rob and Ramin are usually here, but they couldn't be here today to help out. So real quickly, that email address again, if anybody wants to email you ideas for Take a Hike Season 2. WEIU at WEIU.net. And real quickly, next week we're going to have Mr. Ken Waddell as our guest here on Issues and Attitudes. Everybody have a great day. This is WEIU.